Tang Yin, a person born with abnormal pupils, died suddenly after watching the fire's shadow without sleeping. However, when she opened her eyes again, she arrived at Douluo Continent and became Tang San's brother. Is there any hidden truth behind Ayin's death? Tang Hao, old dog, everything you do is for the 100,000-year soul ring. You Xiaogang, your so-called martial soul theory is just bullshit. There are no useless martial souls, only useless soul masters. Are you talking about yourself? Keywords of the novel. Douluo. My martial soul is writing will eyes without pop-ups. Douluo. My martial soul is writing will eyes. Download the complete set of TXT. Douluo. My martial soul is writing will eyes. Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Wedge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Wedge Douluo Continent, Tiendo Empire, Fasno Province, Holy Soul Village. What year is this? Counting the time, it's almost time for the awakening of the martial soul, isn't it? Tang Yin was lying on the mountainside with a blue-silver grass in his mouth, lazily basking in the sunlight. He lay quietly, gazing at the scenery he had never seen before in his past life. Brother. It's time to go home for dinner. Tang San ran over, holding a hunting rabbit in his hand and shouted to the person in front of him. I heard you, mistress. After speaking, Tang Yin stood up straight with a carp, splashed a little dirt on his body, and followed Tang San home. On the way home, Tang Yin looked at the rabbit Tang San was holding in his hand and couldn't help but laugh in his heart, saying, little three, I don't know what you're thinking when your future wife is a rabbit. Thinking of this, Tang Yin couldn't help but burst into laughter. Brother, why are you laughing? Are you so happy? Tang San looked at his brother who suddenly burst out laughing in confusion, somewhat puzzled. It's nothing, I thought of something happy. Tang Yin waved his hand, indicating that it was nothing. Oh. Tang San withdrew his puzzled gaze and thought to himself, brother, why is it strange? Forget it, let's hurry home and cook for Dad. A moment later, Tang San and Tang Yin stepped into the door one by one and saw Tang Hao lying on the table, holding a wine bottle in one hand and falling asleep. Tang Yin curled her lips and thought to herself, it's a joke that we still have to rely on us to support the Douluo, which is a prestigious title. In his past life, Tang Yin had no parents. With his own efforts or the luck brought by his abnormal pupils, he survived a cold winter and embarked on his path to survival. Perhaps due to his abnormal pupils, Tang Yin was not well liked by people when he was young. Even if he went to do odd jobs, no one wanted him. Fortunately, he was adopted by a noodle shop owner and survived. The noodle shop owner really likes Hokage because it came out when he was a child, so he really likes it. Unconsciously, Tang Yin also fell in love with Hokage, especially the Sharingan of Ujibwa, which gave him the illusion that he could also open his eyes. But the reality is cruel. The owner of the noodle shop passed away from cancer. Tang Yin was deeply saddened and his eyes underwent some changes, but no one had seen him again because he locked himself in the room all day, reading novels and comics to his heart's content. He wanted to escape this world because there was no one worth his love in this world. Fortunately, God is awesome, and his heart stopped at the last moment when he saw the Huiyin comic. When he opened his eyes again, he had already arrived at the Douluo Continent and became Tang San's brother. Having read the original work, he naturally knew Tang Hao's identity, but he had no good feelings for him. Just because he ignored Tang San, if Tang San were not from this world, he would have died long ago. As a traveler, without golden fingers or a system, he feels a lot of pressure. Fortunately, his abnormal pupils were not useless. He had memorized all the ninjutsu techniques in his previous life's Hokage, which was considered his unique golden finger. Therefore, since he was able to walk normally, he began to practice according to the cultivation methods in Hokage. Perhaps due to the world, he was unable to extract chakras, but he was able to use some soul power to complete balance training, water training, and tree climbing training. It seems that we need to awaken our martial soul before we can try using ninjutsu, Tang Yin thought to herself. Brother, wake up Dad. I'm ready to cook, Tang San said to Tang Yin sitting next to Tang Hao, holding a small bowl. Tang Yin nodded and patted Tang Hao's back, saying, Dad, get up and eat. Upon hearing Tang Yin's words, Tang Hao rubbed his sleepy eyes and sat up, ready to eat. Dong dong dong. Dong 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 dong. When Tang San came to the table with the prepared rabbit meat and porridge, there was a fierce knock on the door. Who is it? Tang San stood up in confusion, intending to open the door. Could it be, old Jack? Tang Yin was overjoyed in his heart. Opening the door, as expected, Tang Yin had a slender figure, but his spirit was hale, his clothes were clean and tidy, and his hair was meticulously combed. He was exactly the old Jack who hoped to become a soul master again in his village. Tang San asked in confusion, Grandpa Jack, why did you come? Old Jack looked at Tang San with a loving expression on his face and said slowly, Xiao San, the soul master will come to help you awaken your martial souls tomorrow. I will inform you and your brother, and wish you good luck in awakening a good martial soul. Upon hearing the awakening of the martial soul, Tang Yin breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. I don't know what kind of martial soul I can awaken, such as the Sharingan or the Haotian hammer. Just as Tang Yin was thinking about awakening his martial soul, old Jack looked at Tang Hao, who was still eating, and a wave of anger surged in his heart. He cursed loudly, Tang Hao, you said you're an adult and now you have to rely on 2 children to support yourself. Have you fulfilled your responsibility as a father? Tang Hao listened as if he hadn't heard him, still eating Tang San's roasted rabbit meat, as if old Jack wasn't talking about him. Tang San and Tang Yin stood on the side, feeling a bit embarrassed because what old Jack said was true. Just as old Jack was still cursing, Tang Hao spoke out. Xiao Yin, Xiao San, if you don't eat anymore, I'll eat everything. As soon as he said this, old Jack's face turned pale with anger, and he trembled and pointed at Tang Hao, ready to curse loudly. Upon seeing this, Tang Yin quickly grasped old Jack's aging hand and whispered, Grandpa Jack, please go back first. We will go tomorrow. Tang San also agreed on the side and said, Yes, Grandpa Jack, you can go back and rest first, and we haven't eaten yet. Upon hearing this, old Jack sighed and turned around to leave. He was still muttering, what a great child, it's a pity to have a father like Tang Hao. Tang San and Tang Yin had been practicing since childhood, and naturally could hear old Jack's words. The corners of their mouths twitched and they closed the door. Tang Hao didn't look at the 2 of them. After finishing his meal on his own, he walked to the side, pulled up the bellows, and began to forge iron. Tang San and Tang Yin were eating leftover food while listening to the sound of Tang Hao forging iron, and also accelerating their pace. There is nothing else, just because Tang Yin wants to see how the so-called chaotic cloak hammer technique works. Tang San, on the other hand, wanted to learn from his father how to forge iron, so that he had a reason to make his own hidden weapons. After a moment, the 2 of them packed their dishes and saw Tang Hao still making iron. Tang San spoke up and asked, Father, can you teach me how to make iron? Upon hearing this, Tang Hao was slightly taken aback. Third, do you want to learn how to make iron? Tang San nodded, and Tang Yin beside him nodded with great interest. Okay, then I'll demonstrate it to you. Watch it carefully and learn it well. After speaking, Tang Hao picked up the iron hammer and struck it one by one on the iron. Dang dang. Dang dang, every time a hammer hits the iron, it makes a deafening sound, but upon closer inspection, one can discover that the sound is rhythmically striking, like notes. Tang Yin glanced at Tang San and found himself immersed in the sound of Tang Hao pounding the refined iron. He didn't even notice it when he looked at him. If Tang Yin's gaze were on Tang San normally, he would react. As the protagonist, it's different, Tang Yin thought to herself. In no time, the refined iron was deformed by Tang Hao's hammer. So, have you two learned? Tang San nodded. Tang Yin shook his head. Seeing Tang Yin shake his head, Tang Hao furrowed his brows slightly and said coldly, as a big brother, you have learned how to be a mistress. How come you don't know? As soon as these words were spoken, Tang Yin was stunned. Good guy, I just don't know how to get to your place. How come you still need a mistress to know, so I have to know? However, these words cannot be said at all, after all, my wings are not yet fully developed, so it is better to be cautious. Raising his small face, he said with a hint of grievance, perhaps the third person has exceptional talent, and I haven't really learned it. Upon hearing this, Tang Hao's expression softened a bit, and after some thought, he said, since that's the case, then you can take another look. After speaking, invite Tang San to come over and start making iron. Tang San's first reaction when he took the hammer was, sink, sink. Xiaogang started running secretly, and it felt like the hammer wasn't as heavy as it was just now. Tang San secretly thought to himself. Ding ding dang dang. Ding ding dang dang. The sound of striking iron kept ringing. 10 times. 30 times. Before long, Tang San was already sweating profusely and couldn't pick up the hammer. 31 strokes. Tang Hao's eyes flashed with a hint of brilliance. Turning his head to Tang Yin, he said calmly, Xiaowu, go and give it a try. Tang Yin took the hammer from Tang San's hand and with a loud bang, he saw the iron hammer fall directly to the ground. Tang Hao's face stiffened as he snatched the iron hammer from Tang Yin's hand and said coldly, since you can't pick it up, from tonight on, knock me 1,000, and there's a mistress. Tang San was taken aback at the words. I know now, Dad. Tang Yin lowered her head, a hint of red light flashing in her eyes, and whispered, I know too. Upon hearing this, Tang Hao's face stiffened as he returned to the room to prepare for sleep. As soon as he lay down, he seemed to have thought of something and shouted loudly, let's start tonight. Tang San looked at Tang Yin with his head down, patted his shoulder, and softly said, brother, it's okay, isn't it just 1,000 taps? I'll fight with you. Tang Yin's red light dissipated in his eyes, and he lifted his head and smiled, it's okay, I'm your brother. Are you still worried that I might get married? After speaking, Tang Yin struggled to lift the hammer and began to smash it at the iron block one by one. Upon seeing this, Tang San also picked up a hammer nearby and smashed it. Inside, Tang Hao listened to the sound of the two tapping, his stiff face softened a bit, and he murmured, it seems I can give the messy cloak to the mistress. Hello everyone, I am a new author and I hope everyone can support me. I am looking for new books to be collected, hehe. Sign the contract. Please rest assured to follow. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Awakening Martial Soul. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Awakening Martial Soul. Dang dang. Dang dang. Inside the blacksmith's shop, there was a constant sound of knocking. Brother, how many times have you knocked? Tang San put down the hammer and asked panting. 138 times. 139 times. Tang Yin held a hammer and desperately struck the iron block, responding without hesitation. At this moment, both he and Tang San were sweating profusely, with hot sweat constantly flowing into their eyes, causing them to turn crimson. Seeing Tang Yin's desperate appearance, Tang San couldn't help but feel heartbroken and said, brother, you can rest for a while. Tomorrow, you have to go awaken your martial soul. Upon hearing this, Tang Yin nodded, but his movements did not stop at all, pounding the iron block one after another. Tang San sighed inwardly and said, since I was young, I didn't know what giving up means. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any martial arts skills, otherwise he would definitely be much stronger than me. When Tang Yin thought of himself practicing purple extreme magic eyes and Xiantian Gong, he did some training on his own that he couldn't understand. Tang San shook his head, threw away these distractions, and focused on continuing to strike the iron block. Night passed quickly. At the dawn of the day, Tang Yin and Tang San also stopped their hammers. After a night of pounding, the iron block had changed slightly in shape. "Brother, I'll go out and rest for a while," Tang San said softly. Tang Yin nodded, knowing that Tang San had taken advantage of the first breath of purple energy in the morning to cultivate the purple extreme magic eye. "Coincidentally, I also had something I wanted to do. I stood up and walked out of the blacksmith's shop early, propping up my body, which was shaky from exhaustion." "Brother." Tang San had some doubts and didn't understand why Tang Yin came out. "Xiao San, you go rest. I'll go lie down on the mountainside yesterday because the air there is much better." Tang Yin explained to him. Everyone has secrets, even Tang Yin is no exception. "I see." Tang San suddenly realized that he thought Tang Yin was going to do something. It turned out that he was going to blow some air. Tang Yin waved his hand and turned towards the halfway up the mountain. Upon seeing this, Tang San didn't hide anymore. He quickly ran to a hill and sat cross-legged, absorbing the first purple aura of the morning. On the other side, Tang Yin saw that Tang San's figure was no longer visible and reached out to make a gesture. End. C. Yin, the Art of Clone. A white smoke suddenly appeared beside Tang Yin, and a person who looked exactly like Tang Yin stood here. I went and finally succeeded. Tang Yin was a bit excited because he had been trying for a long time to succeed this time. Bang! Tang Yin turned his head and found that the clone technique he had just used had dissipated. He scratched his head and said, "I'm still not very proficient." "Brother, let's go. Grandpa Jack is here." Turning around, Tang San ran over, followed by old Jack. Taking a deep breath, revealing a small white tooth, he smiled and said, "All right, let's go." On the way to awaken his martial soul, old Jack earnestly said, "Xiao Yin, Xiao San, we haven't seen a soul master in our holy soul village for a long time. I hope you too can awaken a good martial soul, so that our holy soul village can also be considered as a soul master after that soul saint." Tang Yin looked at old Jack's face and his mouth twitched. "Not only a soul master, but also a god. Don't call it Holy Soul Village in the future, call it Holy Soul Village." Not long after, the three of them walked to the Martial Soul Hall in the center of the Holy Soul Village, where many children gathered. Without looking, it was clear that the Martial Soul Hall had awakened the martial soul. Tang Yin Dao said, "The Martial Soul Hall has done a good job in this aspect. Otherwise, so many children from ordinary families will be ordinary people for their entire lives. The Martial Soul Hall has at least given some ordinary people hope for awakening their martial souls." At this moment, a young man emerged from the crowd, and Tang Yin didn't need to look to know that he was our famous blind Douluo, Su Yuntao. "Is this the Soul Master?" Tang San looked at Su Yuntao with great interest. "Hello, respected War Soul Master, I would like to trouble you this time." Old Jack respectfully saluted the young man. Su Yuntao impatiently said, "Let's start quickly. I have to go to the next village later, don't waste your time." Old Jack nodded and turned to the children, saying, "Children, it's up to you to awaken your martial soul." After speaking, old Jack left this place. "Children, come in, I'll awaken your martial soul." Su Yuntao waved his hand and the children present walked into the Martial Soul Hall one by one. Seeing that everyone had arrived, Su Yuntao closed the doors and windows and began to introduce himself. "My name is Su Yuntao, a level 26 Soul Master, and I am your guide. I will awaken your martial souls one by one." After speaking, Su Yuntao pointed at a child and gestured for him to come over. After he stood up, Su Yuntao silently recited, "Martial soul, possessed." The children present were instantly frightened by this scene and dared not speak. Su Yuntao signaled to relax and explained, "This is my martial soul, named the Lone Wolf. After you awaken your martial soul, you will also see me in this state." Seeing the children nod, Su Yuntao quickly reached out his hand and injected soul power, only to see a golden light enveloping the child. "Extend your hand." The child obediently stretched out, and soon a sickle appeared. Su Yuntao frowned slightly and said, "Is it a sickle? Try to see if you have soul power." The child placed their hand on the crystal ball, but there was no response. Su Yuntao shook his head helplessly and said, "Abandoned martial soul, no soul power, next one. Abandoned martial soul, next one. Next." In no time, Tang San and Tang Yin had already arrived. Su Yuntao pointed at Tang San and said, "It's your turn." Tang San nodded and walked up to Su Yuntao, waiting to awaken his martial soul. Su Yuntao nodded and thought to himself, "This kid may be able to awaken a good martial soul." Injecting soul power, Tang San burst out with a dazzling golden light, filling the entire room. The light gradually dimmed, and Su Yuntao, relying on his martial soul possession, saw a swaying blue-silver grass through the golden light. Blue-silver grass. Seeing this, Su Yuntao supported his forehead and murmured, "Bai is happy. Forget it, test your soul power yourself, and I will awaken his martial soul." After throwing the crystal ball to test soul power, Su Yuntao pointed towards Tang Yin. Tang San took the crystal ball and placed his hand on it. The previously unlit crystal ball instantly burst into a light blue light. Su Yuntao on the side exclaimed in surprise, "This is the innate full soul power." As the light blue light dissipated, Su Yuntao sighed and said, "Unfortunately, it's a waste martial soul." "Uncle, what is innate soul power?" Tang San asked with confusion. When everyone awakens their martial soul, in addition to determining its strength based on its form, the amount of soul power is also crucial. This determines the starting point of a soul master's cultivation. The higher the innate soul power, the faster the acquired cultivation will be. Oh. Tang San nodded, indicating that he understood. Su Yuntao just turned around and awakened his martial soul for Tang Yin. Martial soul, awaken. With the injection of soul power, Tang Yin only felt that he had something to come out of his hands, and his mind was moved. A blue-silver grass was the same as Tang Sanyi. How blue? Silver. Grass. Su Yuntao's teeth were almost shattered. Tang Yin scratched his head, not realizing that his martial soul was actually blue-silver grass, but no one noticed that a seductive jade had slowly appeared in his eyes. Test soul power. Su Yuntao handed the soul power crystal to Tang Yin. Tang Yin took it and placed his hand on it. The light blue light instantly filled the entire crystal, but there was a hint of blue hidden within this light blue light. It's innate soul power again. Su Yuntao felt a sudden halt in his heart. This is already the second innate full soul power. Is innate full soul power already rotten on the street now? Although it is a useless martial soul like blue-silver grass. Su Yuntao sighed, put away his belongings, and turned to walk outside the hall. Tang Yin and Tang San followed closely behind and stepped out of the hall together. When old Jack saw Su Yuntao come out, he quickly walked forward and asked anxiously, "Master Soul, is there anyone in our village who awakens martial souls?" Su Yuntao nodded and said regretfully, "I have awakened, but I am just two useless martial souls. Unfortunately, I have innate full soul power." After speaking, Su Yuntao left on his own, awakening his martial soul for the next village. Old Jack was stunned on the spot, his mouth constantly repeating, "Innate full soul power, innate full soul power." Seeing Tang Yin and Tang San walking out, old Jack quickly approached and asked, "Xiao Yin, Xiao San, did you two successfully awaken?" Looking at old Jack's hopeful gaze, Tang Yin smiled and said, "That's right, Grandpa Jack. It's the two of us, but unfortunately it's a waste of martial souls." After speaking, Tang Yin summoned the blue silver grass and gestured for old Jack to take a look. Unexpectedly, old Jack shed tears and sobbed, saying, "What's the point of not wasting martial souls? As long as you're a soul master, that's all." Tang Yin and Tang San exchanged a glance and remained silent in agreement. "Xiao Yin, Xiao San, Grandpa will take you home." Old Jack wiped his tears and said to the two with a kind expression on his face. On the way, Tang San asked old Jack, "Grandpa Jack, what is a soul master?" Didn't Master Su Yuntao tell you?" Old Jack was a bit puzzled. "There is no X2, Tang Yin and Tang San spoke in unison. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Random Cloak Hammer Method. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Random Cloak Hammer Method. The levels of Soul Masters are divided into Soul Master, Great Soul Master, Soul Zun, Soul Sect, Soul King, Soul Emperor, Soul Saint, Soul Douluo, and Title Douluo. The Soul Master who just awakened your martial soul is a Great Soul Master, and you will definitely become a Great Soul Master in the future. Old Jack touched Tang San and Tang Yin's little brain. "Is that all?" Tang San was somewhat surprised, not expecting the division of Soul Master levels to be so simple. "Oh, yes, I remember. And the Soul Ring, the most important thing for a Soul Master is the Soul Ring." Old Jack suddenly clapped his hands and exclaimed in surprise. "Soul Ring." Tang San was somewhat puzzled. Tang Yin walked quietly on the side. He had read the original work and naturally knew how to choose, so he didn't say anything and just listened quietly. "Sorry, mistress. I don't know what a soul ring is." "To obtain a soul ring, I heard you need to hunt soul beasts." "Don't worry, Grandpa will find a way to send you to the academy, and then you can become a soul master." Old Jack touched Tang San's little brain again. Looking at Tang Yin who remained silent next to him, old Jack thought to himself, why doesn't Xiao Yin ask anything? This won't work. I need to find a way to send him to the college, otherwise following his father will ruin this child's life. If Tang Yin knew what old Jack was thinking, he would definitely burst out laughing, not because he didn't speak, but because he knew what the soul ring was. After a moment, the three of them stopped at the blacksmith's shop and could see Tang Hao lying on the table drinking. Getting up so early to drink. There's a problem. Tang Yin looked at Tang Hao suspiciously. During this time, Tang Hao was usually asleep, but surprisingly woke up early today. "Tang Hao, both of your sons have awakened their martial souls and possess innate full soul power. I have decided to send them both to the academy." Old Jack smiled. "No, I don't agree with them going to Soul Master Academy." Tang Hao suddenly became agitated and shouted loudly. "Tang Hao! Are you crazy? Do you want Xiao San and Xiao Yin to work hard like you for a lifetime?" Old Jack scolded angrily. "What's wrong with forging iron? I'm their father, and if I say it's not possible, it's just not possible. Besides, who will cook for me after they leave?" Tang Hao said coldly. "Tang Hao! You're so unreasonable." Old Jack was a bit angry and didn't understand what Tang Hao was thinking. Tang Hao didn't speak and picked up the wine on his own and started drinking. Old Jack was furious and slammed the door away. Tang Yin and Tang San stood there silently, waiting for Tang Hao to speak. "What martial souls have you awakened, the two of you?" Tang San took a step forward, raised his right hand, and a blue-silver grass appeared in his hand. "Father, my martial soul is blue-silver grass." Tang Hao's body trembled unconsciously for a moment, then he lowered his body and looked at the blue-silver grass in Tang San's hand, murmuring, "Is it blue-silver grass? Xiao Yin, what about yours?" Tang Yin walked forward, raised his right hand, and a blue-silver grass also appeared in his hand. "You too, blue-silver grass." Tang Hao felt even heavier in his heart, as if he had thought of some bad memories. At this moment, Tang San asked softly, "Dad, can a person only have one martial soul?" Tang Hao thought that Tang San was dissatisfied with his martial soul and nodded stiffly. "But I still have a martial soul." Tang San extended his left hand. A small black round-headed hammer appeared in his hand and continued to grow larger. "What? It's a Haotian hammer." Tang Hao grabbed Tang San's hand and carefully looked at the hammer. For a moment, Tang Hao hugged Tang San and tears flashed through his eyes. "Third, remember to use the hammer on your left hand to protect the grass on your right hand. Can you do it?" Tang San didn't understand why his father was saying that, but he nodded and said, "I know, Dad." "Well, I agree with you becoming a soul master, but never use your second martial soul in front of outsiders, and don't attach soul rings to it. Can you do it?" Tang San's forehead glistened with sweat and nodded. Tang Hao naturally noticed this scene and thought to himself, "He truly deserves to be my son. Even if he can't hold on anymore, he won't say anything. That's great. Take it back, with your current soul power you can't sustain it." As soon as Tang San finished speaking, the Haotian hammer on his left hand disappeared in an instant, and he sat on the ground panting heavily. Turning to Tang Yin, he asked, "What about you? Xiaoyin, do you have a second martial soul?" Tang Yin remained silent, and a jade wheel in his eyes quietly activated. Tang Hao thought that Tang Yin didn't have a second martial soul, and then he saw a pair of eyes with blood-red Goyu appearing. Tang Hao frowned slightly and asked in confusion, "Is the martial soul an eye?" Tang Yin nodded, and Goyu stopped spinning and changed back. "Impossible." Upon seeing this, Tang Hao pondered for a moment and said in a deep voice, "Xiao San's second martial soul is Haotian hammer. How could your second martial soul be an eye?" "No, since he owns blue-silver grass, he is Ayin's son, but the second martial soul should be the Haotian hammer, just like Xiao San." "Is it a mutated martial soul? Can't a hammer change its eyes?" After much thought, Tang Hao always felt his mind was in a mess, thinking that he would ask someone about it in a while. After all, it was too strange. "By the way, Xiaoyin, what is your martial soul called?" "Right the wheel eye." "Writing wheel eyes." Now Tang Hao is even more confused. Haven't he heard of it? Is it a new martial soul? Tang Yin saw his puzzled expression and said in a slow voice, "The Sharingan, also known as the pupil of spiritual reflection, can evolve, but it requires some conditions that I don't know yet." Upon hearing this, Tang San scratched his head and said, "The pupils of spiritual reflection, brother's martial soul is really strange." Upon hearing Tang Yin's words, Tang Hao breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He thought Ayin had brought him a hat. After all, his two sons were hammers and eyes. How could that be? The pupil of spiritual reflection. Did you miss your mother? Tang Hao seemed to have thought of something and said to Tang San, "Xiao San, don't you want to learn how to make iron? I'll teach you." Tang San, who was still thinking about what the pupils of spiritual reflection were, heard Tang Hao teaching him how to make iron, which undoubtedly made him a lot happier, and he forgot about his thoughts. Glancing at Tang San with satisfaction, he then looked at Tang Yin standing over there and thought to himself, "Since Xiaoyin doesn't have the Haotian hammer, there's no need to give him the chaotic cloak." "Xiaoyin, come and take a look too," Tang Hao said calmly. Tang Yin nodded and stepped over. "Watch it, my next hammering method." Tang Hao clenched his hammer and smashed it one by one. His waist and back merged, and every time he struck an iron block, the iron block would change, which made Tang San beside him feel unbelievable. "My father really taught me, even though he didn't use internal power or soul power, it's the power of the body." Tang San's eyes flashed with a faint purple, which was the purple extreme demon eye. As Tang Hao gradually hammered out 30.6 hammers, the iron block surprisingly became a whole circle smaller, and the impurities inside were difficult to detect with the naked eye. What a beautiful hammering technique! Tang San was shocked in his heart. Tang Yin stood on the side, and the Sharingan quietly activated, completely copying the Chaos Cloak hammer technique, as it reminded him of some other uses. Tang Hao put down his hammer and looked softly at Tang San and Tang Yin. Next, Xiao San, you should practice like me every day so that you can understand the mystery of this hammer technique. What is that brother doing? Tang San asked in confusion. Tang Yin also looked at Tang Hao with a puzzled expression on his face. As for Xiaoyin, you can start fighting nearby. Since your eyes are martial souls, you should learn things much faster. Tang Hao thought about it, but could only say so. No problem, Tang Yin nodded and agreed. Tang San also nodded, in his opinion, this was indeed the best way. Tang Yin thought, since that's the case, I'll ask Tang San to craft some ninja tools for me, otherwise it would be difficult to hunt soul beasts. Starting from tomorrow, there are still 3 months until you start school, Tang Hao said and went back to the house to sleep. Tang Yin and Tang San exchanged a glance and returned to their small bed together, closing their eyes. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Not in college. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Not in college. The next day, Tang San got up early to practice purple extreme magic eyes, only to find Tang Yin also on the mountaintop. Did brother discover my purple extreme magic eyes? Tang San felt a hint of unease in his heart. Never try to pretend to be a pig and eat a tiger, otherwise it's easy to really become a pig, said the 4th article in the Shantian treasure record. Tang San walked slowly forward, wanting to see what Tang Yin was doing here. Sensing someone behind him, Tang Yin's eyes flashed with a hint of red light, which was a sign of opening the Sharingan. Xiao San. Tang Yin stood up and realized that behind him was Tang San. Why did you come? Tang Yin asked in confusion. Tang San's face turned black and he thought to himself, even though I found this place first, did you ask me? Brother, I'm here to blow the wind. I like to blow the wind here every morning, Tang San explained. Tang Yin scratched her head and explained, I just came here to blow some air. Since you're here, I'll go exercise first. After speaking, Tang Yin patted Tang San's shoulder and ran towards the distance, where he was accustomed to lying halfway up the mountain. Seeing Tang Yin leave, Tang San breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Fortunately his secret was not discovered. Brother should have accidentally found this place, after all, it is indeed a good place for blowing air. Thinking of this, Tang Sanpan sat down and began to absorb the first ray of purple air from the east in the morning. On the other side, Tang Yin opened his Sharingan and saw that Tang San had already started practicing. He thought to himself, I need to find a hidden place so that no one will know when I practice ninjutsu. Looking at the river below, Tang Yin had some plans in her heart. Summon the blue-silver grass and activate the focus of the Sharingan to control the blue-silver grass to wrap around the ancient tree on the opposite bank of the river. The blue-silver grass was like a snake, firmly entwined with the ancient tree on the opposite bank of the river. Tang Yin grabbed the blue-silver grass and ran up, swinging it like a swing and flying over. It seems that it is possible to control the blue-silver grass with spiritual power to entangle it, Tang Yin said calmly as he retrieved the blue-silver grass and looked at it that had already dissipated from the ancient tree. Walking slowly into this ancient forest for about 10 minutes, Tang Yin discovered a plain. It's really a great place. This place is covered with stones and some weeds, but fortunately the area is large enough. Since that's the case, let's try the intercalary chakra attribute inside my body. Zi Cho Su Wu Shen Hai Yin. Fire escape. The art of Heobo. Tang Yin's index finger and thumb on his right hand were extended straight, standing upright under his lips. The soul power inside his body was transformed into flames, and he instantly spat it out. A fireball with a diameter of 1 meter smashed fiercely towards the small rocky mountain in the distance. With a loud bang, the original little stone mountain was shattered by the explosion. Not bad, the power is decent, but the soul power consumption is a bit high. Tang Yin felt that his body had almost reduced 4 layers of soul power. Perhaps after improving my soul power, I can try other ninjutsu techniques. Thinking of the power of Uchiha's powerful move to extinguish the flames, it's simply amazing. That's just one person's strength and one class's water escape to resist. In the case of attribute restraint. It's almost time, it's time to go back, Tang Yin sighed. Turning around, he left this small secret land that belonged to him. In the following days, Tang Yin will focus on studying ninjutsu and controlling blue silver here. Xiao-san, I want to ask you to help me make something. Tang Yin walked up to Tang San with a blueprint. Brother, is this a hidden weapon? Tang San took the blueprint and asked in confusion. Roughly speaking, the sword and steel wire in hand on this blueprint, Tang Yin explained. I do know this steel wire, what is the sword in this hand? Tang San frowned. Can't it be done? Tang Yin felt a bit regretful. After all, if Tang San couldn't do it, then no one would be able to do it. Tang Yin still believes in this hidden weapon master, at least compared to others. Let me give it a try, Tang San said lightly as he took the blueprint. I believe you, mistress, Tang Yin affirmed. Tang San didn't speak, just focused his attention on tapping the iron block. After his daily pounding during this period, the Chaos Cloak hammer technique has become proficient in his heart. 3 months later, old Jack stood at the blacksmith's shop, anxiously waiting for Tang San and Tang Yin to appear, afraid that Tang Hao wouldn't let him go. Perhaps it was because he went to Nottingham that old Jack wore a new outfit. Tang San said, Brother, I have made the sword in my hand for this mechanism. The materials you gave me are not enough, only one has been made. This thing is completely different from his hidden weapon. Although it's a bit simpler, he has never made such a hidden weapon before. Thank you, mistress, Tang Yin touched his head and smiled. Xiao-Yin, Xiao-san, come out and I'll take you to the Soul Master Academy in Notting City, old Jack shouted from the door. Let's go. Tang Yin picked up his backpack and walked towards the blacksmith's shop. Tang San followed closely behind with his own bundle and walked out of the blacksmith shop. Seeing the 2 children come out, old Jack breathed a sigh of relief. After all, he knew Tang Hao's bad temper. Xiao-Yin, Xiao-san, originally we only had 1 quota for working-class students, but fortunately, the neighboring village has not had a single awakening of martial souls this year. So I went to their village to ask for a quota. Since you're out, let's go, said old Jack kindly. Let's go. Tang Yin nodded and followed old Jack. Tang San shouted into the room, Dad, let's go. Congee is ready in the pot. Don't forget to drink it. After a moment, wait for the 3 of them to walk away. The curtain of the blacksmith's shop was lifted, and Tang Hao's figure slowly appeared. There was no drowsiness in his eyes, as he watched the back of the 3 people leaving. Xiao-Yin, don't blame your father for being ruthless. You can't inherit the sect without the Haotian hammer. The future of the sect depends on the mistress, as well as your mother's revenge. Your father is a useless person. Tang Hao stood at the entrance of the blacksmith shop, unsure of what he was thinking until he left the shop in the afternoon. Meanwhile, Tang Yin, Tang San, and old Jack have just entered Notting City. Although Holy Soul Village is not far from Notting City, old Jack slowed down his pace considering his 2 children, ate something midway, and arrived at Notting City in the afternoon. As soon as he entered the city, old Jack lost his way. Fortunately, with a few kind-hearted people guiding him, old Jack took his 2 children to find Notting Junior Soul Master Academy. Before they could approach, the 3 of them saw a tall black arch, much larger than the school gate Tang Yin had seen in his past life. It's truly a Soul Master school, it's grand. This is Tang Yin's inner thoughts. Walk to the front of the arch and look at the 4 big characters in the middle of the arch, Notting College. Before a few people could approach, the nearby gatekeeper shouted loudly. What do you do? Where do you come from, country bumpkins? The gatekeeper sneered as he saw several people dressed plainly. Old Jack can be said to be glamorous in the village, but when he arrives in the city, he understands everything. As for Tang Yin and Tang San, they were even poorer. They couldn't have enough to eat, and they also had an alcoholic father. It would be nice to have clothes to wear. Being scolded by the security guard, old Jack didn't get angry either. He apologized and said, "Little brother, we're from Holy Soul Village. They're both working-class students this year. Do you think we need to go through any more procedures?" Holy Soul Village. I think it's a beggar's village, right? Just because you're poor, how could you possibly become a soul master? Our college hasn't had any part-time students for many years, so you're not fake, are you? The gatekeeper sneered with a look of disbelief. Upon hearing this, Tang San extended his hand behind his back, and when he took it out again, the sleeve arrow inside his sleeve was already ready. "If you dare to continue talking nonsense, I won't be polite to you," Tang San frowned slightly and said coldly. "Xiao San, don't speak recklessly," old Jack scolded. "We are not counterfeit goods. If you don't believe us, please refer to the certificate issued by the deacon of the Martial Soul Hall, which can prove it." After speaking, old Jack took out the Martial Soul certificate and handed it to the gatekeeper. "Humph, I want to see if your proof is true or false," the gatekeeper snorted coldly and took the Martial Soul proof to look at it. Seeing this scene, Tang Yin also felt a little angry in his heart, but he knew that he was not suitable to take action now. After all, the target of the sword in the mechanism's hand was too big. Wait a little longer, the master who claims to be invincible in theory will come out. You. The gatekeeper pointed at old Jack, somewhat incredulous. The proof of martial soul prominently states innate full soul power, as well as the blue-silver grass of martial soul. The gatekeeper angrily said, "Everyone knows that blue-silver grass is a waste of martial soul, and it has innate soul power. I think it's innate soul power." After speaking, the gatekeeper threw the martial soul certificate to old Jack and scolded him to leave. No matter how much old Jack endured, there was a hint of anger in his eyes. It wasn't because they scolded him, but because they said these two martial soul certificates were fake. "Humph, you poor ghosts don't even know what you mean. Even if the martial soul proves it's true, I can't let you in," the gatekeeper sneered in his heart. "Don't talk about Holy Soul Village, I think it's just a garbage village, a beggar's village, and a delusional soul master. I think you guys should go pick up the garbage, and it's pretty much the same." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Masters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Masters. Tang San was displeased when he saw the gatekeeper so arrogant and was scolded by old Jack. Now that the gatekeeper is humiliating him so much, how can he endure it? Xiantian Treasure Record, Article 5. Tang's sect disciples should not easily provoke trouble, but if anyone actively invades, they may retaliate with thunder. Here, no one can see that it was me who made the move, and besides, I am confident that one strike will kill. You already have a way to take death. The safety of the silent sleeve arrow was opened, and Tang San planned to shoot it. Anyway, no one here can see it, even if they kill him, no one knows it was done by themselves. After all, in his heart, the gatekeeper can insult Holy Soul Village and old Jack, but he must not insult Tang sect disciples. What did you say just now? Old Jack was burning with anger, and he would never allow anyone to insult the Holy Soul Village in his heart. The words from the gatekeeper just now had already touched his bottom line, which he couldn't bear anymore. What kind of person is old Jack? Even the title Douluo dared to curse fiercely. If it weren't for the sake of his two children going to school, he would have cursed loudly long ago. Under old Jack's angry gaze, the gatekeeper unexpectedly felt a hint of retreat. But soon, the gatekeeper reacted and thought to himself, "It's really useless. I was scared away by an old man. Thinking of this, the gatekeeper will drive away old Jack. Tang Yin furrowed his brow slightly, and his riding wheel eyes quietly opened, unleashing the magical technique of the hanging shackles. The gatekeeper suddenly felt his whole body nailed down with iron nails, unable to move, accompanied by pain throughout his body, which made him extremely fearful. The riding wheel eyes retracted, and the gatekeeper sat on the ground trembling uncontrollably. Although it was just an illusion just now, the real pain made him fearful. What's going on? Tang San was startled in his heart. When he was driving old Jack away from the gatehouse, the sleeve arrow had already been aimed at his throat, but before he could take action, the gatehouse collapsed to the ground, fearing something. You. What's wrong with this? Old Jack looked bewildered. Old Jack reached out to help the gatekeeper, but the gatekeeper seemed to have seen some kind of fear and desperately pushed him away. He fell down and even pushed him down. Tang Yin saw this and quickly helped old Jack. After all, the other person was so old. What good or bad would he do if he fell? Tang San saw that the gatekeeper dared to push down old Jack, and then thought of what the gatekeeper had done just now, with a hint of coldness in his eyes. Since this gatekeeper dares to provoke himself, as a Tang sect disciple, the other party already has a way to take death. You guys, what's going on? At that moment, the master walked out and asked in a hoarse voice. Tang San was taken aback for a moment, silently retracting his sleeve arrow. He looked up and saw the classic small-inch head and stiff face. Who else could it be if it weren't you, Xiaogang? Tang Yin on the side helped old Jack look at the master, with a hint of disdain in his eyes. The master looked like he was in his 40s or 50s, and his appearance was no longer as handsome as when he was young. His lips were slightly thick, his beard was shaky, and the decadence and laziness emanating from his entire body made him uncomfortable. Is this really a master? Oh, it's a theoretical master. At the moment the gatekeeper saw the master, he prayed as if he had seen a life-saving benefactor. Master, you're back. I seem to have been nailed down by an iron nail just now. Could you please help me take a look? The master saw the yellow color on the gatekeeper's pants, and his stiff face became even more stiff. He ignored it at all and gave a cold glance at the gatekeeper. He saw everything the gatekeeper had done just now. Glancing at Tang San and seeing him still frozen in place, Tang Yin took a step and helped up the gatekeeper lying on the ground. After all, this kind of person can be punished lightly. Thank you. The gatekeeper looked embarrassed. After all, he had just made things difficult for them. Tang Yin shook her head and pointed at old Jack, saying, just apologize to him. The gatekeeper walked over to old Jack with a face full of shame and apologized for it. Sir, I'm sorry, I'm blind. After speaking, he bowed to old Jack. The master stood aside, seemingly seeing the martial soul certificate in old Jack's hand. He coughed twice and said, Sir, can you show me their martial soul certificates? As the head of the village, old Jack, upon observing his words and expressions, would definitely casually hold on to the master's words without any pretense. He handed the martial soul proof to the other party, as he had just heard the gatekeeper call him the master, so the other party's status was definitely not low. The master took the martial soul certificate, looked at it, and coughed lightly, saying, Sir, this certificate is true. Let them come with me. Tang Yin and Tang San exchanged a glance and said goodbye to old Jack. Before leaving, old Jack gave a few words of advice before leaving. Tang San looked at the master in confusion and said, Teacher, where are we going now? The master lowered his head and looked at Tang San, with a faint smile on his face. His stiff face made Tang Yin's brain ache. I am not a teacher in the college. Upon hearing this, Tang San couldn't understand and said, Since you're not a teacher, are you the leader of the college? I just heard the gatekeeper call you master. Haha, you are a smart 6-year-old child, but you still guessed wrong. I am not the leader of the school, the master chuckled. Tang Yin stood on the side, listening to their conversation, feeling as if countless grass, mud, and horses were rushing past in his mind. If you fart, just let it go. Where are you going to chat? Tang Yin cursed inwardly. Tang San raised his small face and asked in confusion, so who are you? The master straightened his chest and said with a pretentious tone, you, am just a resident here, eating and drinking. You, like everyone else, call me master. Everyone calls me that, and I almost forget my name. Upon hearing this, Tang Yin gave him a thumbs up in his heart and said, it's truly you, Xiaogang. You must understand that the meanings of the master and the teacher are vastly different. Don't call me wrong, unless you make me your teacher for both of you. Xiaogang remembered the 2 martial soul certificates he had just received and thought to himself, these 2 are definitely twin martial souls. Otherwise, how could they have innate full soul power solely based on blue-silver grass? Master. Are you going to teach us how to cultivate martial souls? Upon hearing this, Tang San exclaimed excitedly. The master stopped and turned to Tang San, saying, would you be willing to do that? Upon hearing this, Tang San naturally stopped. His excited little face now calmed down. He just looked at the master like this, and he didn't speak, neither agreeing or not agreeing. The master looked at Tang San's eyes and couldn't help but burst into laughter, but his stiff face was not very attractive. Noticing Tang San's intelligence, the master raised his hand and rubbed his head, with exceptional talent and intelligence, it seems that I will persist for once. Anyway, you are also the 3rd twin martial soul in 100 years. Upon hearing the master speak of his twin martial souls, Tang San was greatly surprised. His gaze towards the master suddenly changed, and he lifted the sleeve arrow in his left wrist sleeve, looking at the master in disbelief. The master looked at him with a divine expression and smiled, are you curious why I know your twin martial souls? As he spoke, he shook the 2 certificates given to him by old Jack in his hand and said, perhaps others cannot see this certificate, but if they cannot, then I am not worthy of the words master. I have investigated 647 people whose martial souls are blue-silver grass. Among them, there are 16 people who possess soul power, with a probability of less than 3%. Even among these 16 people who possess soul power, none of them have soul power that can exceed level 1, while you are the 10th level of innate full soul power. According to one of the 10 core competitiveness of martial souls that I have studied, the size of innate soul power is directly proportional to the quality of martial souls. It is obvious that blue-silver grass cannot meet this requirement. Therefore, I am completely certain that you should still have a martial soul, and it is a very powerful martial soul. Moreover, in the past century, only 2 twin martial souls have appeared in the 2 empires, but 19 people with innate soul power have appeared. I have carefully studied their martial souls and found that none of them are powerful beings, while your blue-silver grass is clearly not among them. Therefore, I can conclude that you are a twin martial soul. Unfortunately, no one recognizes my martial soul theory, but I have met you. The master looked at Tang San with burning eyes. Encounter me. Tang San pointed at himself in confusion. That's right, I saw something from you that allowed me to prove my theory. I will provide you with the best theory and guidance for cultivation. How about that? Are you willing to become my disciple? The master smiled. Tang San nodded and suddenly took a step back, distancing himself from the master. Then, he knelt on both knees and respectfully kowtowed 3 heads to the master. This time, the master was stunned and said, what are you doing? Seeing this scene, Tang Yin sighed in his heart, indeed, there are some events that cannot be avoided. Thinking of this, Tang Yin shook her head, said to the master, and then walked past the 2 towards the academy. Tang San needs theory, he doesn't need it. You may find that the main character doesn't have as many roles here, after all, Tang San's apprentice is still indispensable here. Who do you think the female lead is? Everyone can discuss it, single female lead. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The first meeting of Xiaowu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The first meeting of Xiaowu stepping into the interior of the college, Tang Yin realized that the nodding college did not look as large as he had imagined, mainly consisting of several areas, including the bishop's school building, playground, and dormitory building. Compared to previous schools, it seems that there is not much difference, but rather more flowers and plants. Let's go handle the admission procedures first, Tang Yin thought to herself. The teaching center is located on the first floor of the main teaching building, and the teacher responsible for receiving new students is a teacher who appears to be in his 60s, as well as two young teachers in their 30s. Before entering, I heard Xiaogang's voice coming from inside. Director Su, this is a new work student this year and also my disciple. Could you please help him register? What? Master, have you taken in an apprentice? That's really a good thing. I'll help him register for school now. Immediately after, Tang Yin stood outside the door and heard Xiaogang say to Tang San, "San, please wait here for a while. I have something else to do. I'll come back to you when I have time." Okay, goodbye teacher, Tang San nodded respectfully. As soon as the master walked out of the teaching office, he saw Tang Yinjing standing at the door, feeling a little annoyed. Your name is Tang Yin, right? The master asked. Tang Yin nodded. After all, the other party had seen his martial soul proof. Why did you leave without permission just now? Shouldn't you, as an older brother, join me as a teacher with a mistress? There was a hint of dissatisfaction in the master's words, and the meaning was obvious. Your younger brother has already worshipped me as a teacher, so you, as an older brother, should also worship me as a teacher, so, do you want to take me as an apprentice? Tang Yin raised her eyebrows and said calmly. Taking you as an apprentice. Based on your performance just now, I cannot take you as an apprentice. However, with the identity of the third party in your talent, if you worship me as a teacher, I will still agree. After all, you are the third party's brother. A hint of cunning flashed in the master's eyes, and he thought to himself, the third person's talent is so strong, and Tang Yin's talent is definitely not bad. This way, my 10 core theories of martial soul will definitely be confirmed. A hint of coldness flashed in Tang Yin's eyes. This bullshit master, his own strength is not very good. Combining the knowledge of the upper 3 schools and the martial soul hall that has not been sorted out, it becomes yours. Funny. Tang Yin looked at the master's nauseating face and said coldly, do you want to become my teacher? Let's wait until you become a title Douluo. After speaking, ignoring the master's stiff face, he stepped into the teaching office and registered as a student. The master felt ashamed and embarrassed by Tang Yin's words, especially that one. Let's wait until you become a title Douluo. This undoubtedly makes this level 29 soul master resentful, after all, who makes him unable to break through the soul lord in his lifetime. Okay, I want to see how to cultivate your blue-silver grass without my theory, the master said angrily as he carried it on his back and strode away. In his heart, Xiaogang thought that he was the first person in mainland theory. When he first took on his apprenticeship, you ignored him, but now he still refuses to accept you as his apprentice. It's like he doesn't know the world, and Tang Yin will regret it one day. The teachers in the teaching department naturally heard the master's words, and the young man's face was a bit strange. He sarcastically said, Director Su, isn't the master always saying that there are no useless martial souls, only useless soul masters? Now he has taken in a disciple with innate soul power from the martial soul blue-silver grass. Can his theory be fulfilled this time? Puff Director Su couldn't help but laugh when he heard these words. The most classic quote from the master is, according to my top 10 core theories of martial soul competitiveness, especially the one without useless martial souls, only useless soul masters, but being stuck at level 29 for a lifetime is simply laughable. Tang San on the side also heard the mockery of several teachers, especially the words that the master said to Tang Yin before leaving. In his heart, the master could see through the secret of being a twin martial soul at a glance. How could he be a general unknown person? Brother, it's really outrageous. I just finished my apprenticeship, Tang San said, displeased in his heart. When he first became a disciple of the master, Tang Yin walked directly over the two of them, and he felt a bit dissatisfied because he was already a disciple, and his actions were undoubtedly disrespectful. Just now, he made another sarcastic remark about the teacher, but in his heart, it was impolite. Although he only became a disciple today, he can still be considered his own teacher. Tang Yin's actions are not easy for him as a disciple. Tang Yin naturally didn't know what Tang San was thinking. He placed his martial soul certificate on the table and said calmly, Director Su, could you please help me register my student status? I am also a part-time student this year. Director Su was taken aback for a moment, picked up the martial soul certificate and looked at it. His face also became strange, and he whispered to Tang Yin, Child, are you also a blue silver grass? Are you born with full soul power? Tang Yin nodded and said, Yes, Director Su. Tang San and I are brothers. Upon hearing this, Director Su gave Tang San a strange look and asked, Do you really worship the master as your teacher? Tang San said, Yes, is there any problem? No, it's pretty good. Director Su shook his head with a smile and sneered, although the master has a strange personality, in a way, his theory is indeed invincible. Anyway, your martial soul is blue silver grass, so it's not a problem to worship him as a teacher. Alright, this is your thing. Take it, your dormitory is in Building 7. After speaking, Director Su took a brand new set of clothes from the young teacher and handed it to Tang San. After Tang San took it, he said thank you and turned around to leave the teaching office. After seeing Tang San leave, Director Su confirmed Tang Yin's identity and said, Since you and Tang San are brothers, why don't you stop him from worshipping the master? Tang Yin was a bit surprised and didn't understand why Director Su asked so. This is his choice. As a brother, I shouldn't interfere with him. In my opinion, that master is nothing more than a person seeking fame and reputation. Director Su, you see, even a child can hear that his theory is flawed. Are we fools? What kind of broken theory is that? I think it's just bullshit. The young teacher sneered upon hearing Tang Yin's words. That's enough of you. The master is at least a friend of the dean. Let's not judge him privately. In the theoretical world, he is a well-known figure, Director Su said with a smile on his face. Isn't that right, Director? It should be a famous clown. Everyone only treats him as a joke. At this moment, another young teacher spoke up and said, Your name is Tang Yin, right? Your dormitory is also in the 7th dormitory. I would like to remind you that it's best to keep your younger brother away from the master. Although it's a waste martial soul blue silver grass, it's still a rare innate full soul power that can be seen in 100 years. Don't become a little white mouse proven by the master's theory. Tang Yin nodded, took the clothes and some things handed over, said thank you, and bowed before leaving the teaching office. On the other hand, when Tang San heard the conversation inside, a hint of disdain appeared on his lips, not towards the master he had just recognized, but towards the 3 teachers in the academic affairs room. Is it just a joke to be able to tell from a simple proof that you are a twin martial soul and conclude that your other martial soul is a very powerful person? It's just a group of short-sighted people, Tang San sneered. When Tang Yin arrived at the 7th house, he happened to see Tang San and Wang Xing fighting, so he found a bed and sat down, looking at them with relish. It has to be said that in the early stages, Tang San relied on Tangmen martial arts to surpass his peers by a lot, especially Ghost Shadow and Dragon Control, which were very good body techniques and techniques. In a moment, Tang San used crane control to capture the dragon and subdued Wang Sheng, and the battle came to an end. Not long after, Tang San also noticed Tang Yin, but he didn't say anything. After all, what the latter had just done made him very embarrassed. Hello, is this Chisha? Suddenly, a sweet voice echoed through the entire 7 houses. The students in the dormitory are all boys. Suddenly, when they saw a little girl, they all showed a stunned expression. Wang Sheng, are we men and women living together? Tang San grabbed Wang Sheng and asked in a low voice. That's right, boss. Wang Sheng nodded and explained, the children in the academy are still young, so each dormitory is gender neutral. It is said that they will only be separated at the Intermediate Soul Master Academy. Tang Sanrua nodded thoughtfully, after all, he was a otaku in his past life. Apart from studying hidden weapons and killing techniques, he knew nothing else. Wang Sheng saw Tang San not speaking and gave him a push, whispering, boss, give her a hard time. Xiaowu stood at the door, seeing no one paying attention to her. A sweet smile appeared on her face, and she smiled and said, hello, my name is Xiaowu, a dancing dance. Wang Sheng saw that Tang San had not taken any action and quickly stabbed him in the back, indicating that he could not break the rules of the dormitory. Tang San had no choice but to walk toward Xiaowu and whispered, hello, my name is Tang San, the head of the dormitory here. Just call me your name. May I ask what your martial soul is? Xiaowu blinked her big eyes and said with a smile, my martial soul is a rabbit, a very cute little white rabbit. Upon hearing that Xiaowu's martial soul was a rabbit, Tang San blushed slightly and said, isn't my martial soul your food? My martial soul is blue silver grass. Xiaowu smiled and said, you're really interesting. Are you standing at the door and not planning to let me in? Tang San said helplessly, it's like this. Our dormitory has a rule that new work students must show off their abilities, so I want to spar with you. Do you want to compete? It sounds fun, Xiaowu smiled and clapped her hands. Immediately after, under the gaze of Tang Yin's Sharingan, Xiaowu, like the original work, used soft skills to defeat Tang San. And Tang Yin also obtained what he wanted, which was Xiaowu's soft skills, Tang San's ghostly shadows, and controlling cranes and capturing dragons. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Hello, my name is Tang Yin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Hello, my name is Tang Yin. Since Tang San has been defeated by me, then I am the leader of Qixia, Xiaowu said happily as she placed her bundle on the bed. Upon seeing this, Wang Sheng immediately led the crowd to bow their heads and respectfully say to Xiaowu, hello, boss. Xiaowu frowned and said, it's not good to hear. You've called me old. Wang Sheng said awkwardly, boss, this is a rule. So let's. Alright, you call me Xiaowu sister, so I can also consider you as your boss. Xiaowu thought for a moment and said. Hello, little dance sister X9, not bad, not bad. Who can introduce me to the situation of the college? Xiaowu looked like a big sister. Or Wang Sheng stood up. We working-class students are actually responsible for cleaning the college, and the specific work is arranged by the teacher. There are 6 grades, 1 class for each grade. Boss, you and Tang San are new and first-year students. The rest of us are sophomores, and I will be promoted to 6th grade this year. The college has classes in the morning and cultivates on its own in the afternoon. Generally, there are 2 classes in the morning, which are cultural knowledge and martial soul. Most of us engineering students have some work in the afternoon to exchange for some income as food expenses. Wang Sheng gave a brief introduction to other students. Among these working-class students, the one with the best innate martial soul is Wang Sheng. Not only is he a beast martial soul, but he is also the king of beasts. His soul power has reached 9 levels, and by upgrading 1 level, he can participate in soul beast hunting and obtain soul rings to become a soul master. After listening to Wang Sheng's words, Xiaowu glanced at Tang San and said, Tang San, what level of soul power do you have? Just now, I felt like your power seemed very strong. Tang San didn't hide anything and said, I have innate soul power, so my strength is relatively strong. I'll go. With innate soul power. Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng and others all opened their mouths wide and looked incredulous. Xiaowu blinked her eyes and murmured softly, I am also born with full soul power. At this moment, Wang Sheng's younger brother suddenly noticed that there seemed to be an extra person in the 7 houses. Turning his head, he saw Tang Yin sitting next to him with a calm expression on his face. The younger brother looked at Tang Yin as if he had never seen her before and sneered, Who are you? What are you doing in our dormitory? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's gaze swept towards Tang Yin. Except for Tang San, everyone else was shocked and speechless. Not for anything else, but because Tang Yin is really handsome. Unlike Tang San's black hair, he was born with silver hair and his handsome features are incredibly exquisite. At the age of 6, he has already reached a height of 1.52 meters, which makes him appear much taller among these working and studying students, especially the black jade in his pupils, which looks so special. We still have to be our king saint. Are you a working class student this year? Wang Xing stuttered and asked. There's no way, Tang Yin is too handsome, which makes him unconsciously feel a bit inferior in his heart. This feeling was not reflected even in Xiaowu and Tang San. Xiaowu also opened her eyes curiously and looked at Tang Yin, because she sensed the same kind of aura from Tang Yin. Tang Yin smiled warmly and said, Hello, my name is Tang Yin, the silver of blue silver grass. Tang Yin. Tang San. Everyone was puzzled and felt that there seemed to be some connection between these two people. Tang Yin, what's your relationship with the mistress? Xiaowu smiled sweetly and asked curiously. Tang Yin coughed lightly and said, Tang San and I are brothers. I am my brother, he is my younger brother. So it's like this. Xiaowu, Wang Sheng, and others nodded. Since they were Tang San's brother, their strength must not be inferior. Tang Yin, are you and Xiao San both innate and full of soul power? Xiaowu asked curiously. Tang Yin smiled slightly and said, Xiaowu, you are really smart. Xiaowu blinked her big eyes and said proudly, Of course, I'm Xiaowu's sister. Tang Yin smiled and didn't speak. This little rabbit is quite cute. At this moment, a teacher in his 30s walked in from outside and said, Are there any new working class students? Stand up for a moment. Tang Yin, Xiaowu, and Tang San stood up together. Mo Chen nodded, still holding a blanket in his arms. Which of you is Tang San? Tang San stood up in confusion and said, Teacher, I am Tang San. Mo Chen said, This is the bedding that the master gave you. Tang San quickly took it, but he didn't expect the master to be so thoughtful and even prepared a bed for himself. You 3 are all first year working class students. From now on, you will be responsible for cleaning the southern garden, costing 10 copper soul coins per day. Remember to clean up every day, especially the clutter, otherwise your salary will be deducted. If there is any negligence, the college has the right to order you to drop out of school. Do you understand? Tang Yin and the others nodded, indicating that they knew. Mo Chen looked at Tang Yin, who was somewhat similar to Tang San, and frowned, Are you too the innate full soul power that Director Su said? Tang Yin hesitated for a moment, nodded, and said, Yes, Teacher Ma Chen. Mo Chen said, You can come with me later. I happen to have a new set of bedding here, and I'll give it to you. Thank you, Teacher Ma Chen. Tang Yin bowed slightly and smiled. Mo Chen waved his hand, indicating that it was not a big deal. Although he also looked down on the master, who made him have a good relationship with the dean. What else could others say? Come with me. Tang Yin nodded and walked out behind Mo Chen. After the two of them left, Xiaowu looked at Tang San awkwardly and said, The bedding seems to be a problem. All the working class students come from poor families, and they immediately understand what Xiaowu means. They immediately have a sense of humanity and say, Boss, why don't you use my mattress first? I'll just half lay and half cover the blanket. Boss, why don't you use my blanket? I can barely use the mattress. Xiaowu looked at these crumpled blankets and said displeased, I've told you all, don't call me boss, call me Xiaowu sister. Got it, Xiaowu, the crowd immediately said. As she finished speaking, Xiaowu's gaze fell on Tang San and she said, Tang San, how about we discuss it? Tang San was taken aback for a moment. Although he was a otaku in his past life and didn't understand anything, he was still in his 40s. He immediately guessed the meaning of Xiaowu. What are we discussing? Tang San pretended to be puzzled. Hee. Xiaowu showed a sweet smile and said, I see your bedding is quite big, and it's not a problem for two people to cover it. That's it. Let's put the bed together, and we'll both use it. Ah. Tang San pretended to be surprised and whispered, it's not good that men and women don't give or receive each other, is it? Xiaowu snorted lightly and said, what's wrong? I don't care. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid I'll give you something to eat? Tang San was stunned for a moment. Although his mind was already an adult, he was still choked by the rogue rabbit in front of him and couldn't speak. Hurry up, pull the bed over quickly. You're quite strong, aren't you? Xiaowu urged impatiently. Oh, good. Tang San instinctively agreed and pushed the bed to Xiaowu's bedside with a wooden expression. Xiaowu placed her small bag at the seam of the two beds that were pieced together. Put your bag over too, this will be the boundary from now on. If you cross the boundary, don't blame me for being impolite, she said. Tang San nodded, indicating that he knew. Yo, you two are quite fast. At this moment, Tang Yin walked in holding the bedding. Brother, what are you talking about? Xiaowu and I have nothing to do with it. Tang San's face turned slightly red as the alliance explained. Xiaowu pouted and said, really, we didn't have much to say. Why explain so much? Upon hearing this, Tang San was taken aback for a moment and couldn't help but think to himself, is this a precocious girl? After laying the bedding, Tang Yin looked at the two with great interest and said, Xiaowu, are you sure you want to sleep with Tang San? Xiaowu frowned slightly and said, yes, is there any problem? Tang Yin shook her head and said with a smile, of course not a problem. I'm just afraid that the third party will be eaten by you. After all, your martial soul is a rabbit, and his martial soul is blue silver grass. Xiaowu pursed her lips and said, I'm not eating blue silver grass. It's so disgusting. Upon hearing this, Tang San was taken aback for a moment and smiled awkwardly without speaking. Ding, end of this chapter. Chapter 8. Canteen Storm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Canteen Storm. Xiaowu, it's noon. Let's go eat, shall we? Wang Sheng made the bed and stood up, saying to Xiaowu. As soon as she heard that she was about to eat, Xiaowu immediately jumped up and didn't even care about the newly merged bed. Excitedly, she said, all right, what's so delicious to eat? Wang Sheng and the other working-class students looked at each other with a bitter smile and said, Sister Xiaowu, we are working-class students. It's not bad if we have money to eat anything good. It's good if we can fill our stomachs. You go eat, I won't go, Tang San suddenly spoke up. My family was already very poor, and all the money for making iron was bought by Tang Hao to drink. In order not to go hungry, he had to go out alone to make some wild game, so as not to go hungry. As for Tang Yin, he doesn't know where to go after helping himself every day, and he doesn't care at all about eating. He eats whatever he wants, and goes to do it himself if he doesn't. Wang Sheng glanced at Tang San and guessed that he might have difficulty sewing and patching his clothes, but he didn't know what to say. Xiaowu seemed to have thought of something, and the excitement on her face suddenly froze. Does eating cost money? What kind of soul coin is that? Queen Wang Sheng's teeth were almost shattered. Why are all the new working-class students having problems with their brains? Do you still have to talk about spending money on meals? Who would give them a free lunch? However, Wang Sheng could also see that Xiaowu probably had a tight budget, so that's why she said so. Alright, Xiaowu, I'll treat you to these 2 days' meals. Everyone is roommates, so if you have money, just treat me again, said Wang Shenghao. Tang Yin, Tang San, come along too, after all, you are roommates. Tang San hesitated slightly before agreeing. He had never had much concept of money, and Wang Sheng's ease made him somewhat uncomfortable. Unlike Tang San's hesitation, Tang Yin jumped out of bed and hooked his hand around Wang Sheng's neck, saying, "Sure, Wang Sheng, I can't tell you're quite wealthy." Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng patted his chest and said arrogantly, "That's right. I've been here for 6 years, so I still have some savings. Please have a few days of dinner, it's a small gesture." Tang Yin smiled and followed Wang Sheng out. Tang San, Xiaowu, and other roommates followed out of the 7th dormitory and walked towards the cafeteria led by Wang Sheng. The cafeteria was inside the teaching building and had to pass through the entire playground. At this moment, the playground was already lively, and many students wearing college uniforms could be seen walking towards the direction of the teaching building, obviously all going to eat. Tang Yin sighed a bit. He had never attended school in his past life and had only seen it from a distance. Therefore, when he first felt the scope of the college, he felt a little satisfied in his heart. The cafeteria of Notting Junior Seoul Master College is large enough to accommodate 6 classes and more than 300 teachers to eat. At this time, the window of the cafeteria has already formed a long queue, with people coming and going in an endless stream. Many people. "Hey, Wang Sheng, is that 2nd floor also a place to eat?" Xiaowu pointed to a group of senior students walking up the 2nd floor and asked in confusion. Wang Sheng nodded and said, "The cafeteria is divided into 2 floors, and 1 floor can accommodate more than 300 people. After speaking, Wang Sheng leaned close to Xiaowu's ear and whispered, "Xiaowu, the 2nd floor is a place to order dishes alone, it's super expensive, we can't afford it." "Oh, isn't this the group of poor ghosts like Wang Sheng?" Just then, an disharmonious voice came out. Tang San looked in the direction of the sound and saw a group of senior students standing on the stairs on the 2nd floor, looking towards them with high spirits. On the way to the cafeteria, Wang Sheng had already told Xiaowu the rules for the leader of the 7 houses to stand out for working-class students. Xiaowu readily agreed. At this moment, seeing someone speak provocatively, he immediately said to the few people standing high, "What are you? What's so remarkable about the 2nd floor?" After speaking, Xiaowu regretted it a bit. After all, Wang Xinggang just told her that the 2nd floor is super expensive and they really can't afford it. Xiaowu is about the same height as Tang San, shorter than Tang Yin. She was previously blocked by the 2 of them, but as soon as she walked out, the senior students upstairs naturally saw her clearly. She immediately teased and said, "What a beautiful little loli, it's a pity she's a part-time student. Wang Sheng, I'll let you go this time. I'm going to eat now." As they spoke, a group of people walked down the 2nd floor stairs. Xiaowu is about to chase after them, trying to give them some color to see. Tang San reached out and grabbed it, shaking his head, saying, "Forget it, we're here for dinner." Xiaowu looked at him with some disdain and said, "Are you so afraid of things?" Tang San didn't explain. Just as he was about to go to fetch rice, he found that Tang Yin was missing. "Where has brother gone?" Tang San scratched his head and searched for Tang Yin everywhere. Xiaowu and Wang Sheng also reacted at this moment and looked up to find the trace of Tang Yin. "Strange, where has Tang Yin gone?" "He was just standing in front of me," Xiaowu asked in confusion. "Look, is that Tang Yin?" Wang Sheng pointed to an empty table where a figure was frantically cooking. Everyone followed Wang Sheng's finger and saw Tang Yin sitting there, frantically cooking. "I'll go, Tang Yin is too ungrateful, isn't he? We're still standing here, but he ate his own meal." The crowd was a bit angry. Tang Yin. Xiaowu walked towards Tang Yin angrily. Wang Sheng and others saw this and followed Xiaowu towards Tang Yin. At this moment, Tang San saw an acquaintance and quickly welcomed him. "Teacher, you're also here for dinner." It was the master who came and looked at Tang San with satisfaction, thinking to himself, "You are truly my disciple, much stronger than Tang Yin who doesn't understand etiquette." The master coughed lightly and said, "Third, have you packed everything up?" Tang San nodded and said, "We've all packed up." The master patted Tang San's shoulder and said, "It's time for you to grow your body now. Come with me to the second floor for dinner, so I can take you to my place to recognize the door." Tang San thought for a moment and was about to refuse when he saw Tang Yin and his group eating there with a delicious taste. He changed his mind and said, "Thank you, teacher." The master's stiff face forced out a smile and said, "Don't say thank you to me. I am your teacher, you are my disciple, that's right." After speaking, holding Tang San's hand, he walked towards the second floor. "Back just now. Tang Yin. How could you come over to eat alone?" "We haven't eaten yet," Xiaowu said angrily. She pouted and had small dimples on her face, which was incredibly cute. New author, some dishes. Tang Yin looked at her adorable appearance and was a bit stunned. Although he knew that the other party had been transformed into a soul beast for 100,000 years, was his current appearance a bit of a foul? Putting down the mantou in his hand, Tang Yin coughed softly and said, "Xiaowu, Wang Sheng, do you think I am not a man of loyalty? I'm afraid you are hungry, so I came here ahead of time to take a seat." Tang Yin's appearance of being kind to you made the few present somewhat suspicious. "Really?" Xiaowu asked suspiciously. "How could it be true? You couldn't have started fighting, why don't you come and have dinner earlier?" Tang Yin thought to himself. But on the surface, he still smiled and said, "Of course it's true. Look, I'm here to take a seat, which happens to be enough for 10 of us to eat. Is there anything wrong with that?" Xiaowu, Wang Sheng, and others scanned around and found that only their table was empty. Although some people had left, the others were still full. "Sorry, Tang Yin, we misunderstood you," Xiaowu said apologetically. "Sorry, Tang Yin, we misunderstood you." Wang Sheng apologized to Xiaowu and quickly led everyone to apologize to Tang Yin. Tang Yin waved her hand and said, "It's all a small matter. We're all roommates. What's the point here, right?" Puff. Xiaowu couldn't help but laugh as she looked at Tang Yin's expression. When others saw this, they also began to eat. Although it was mantou and pickles, they seemed to eat more than before. On the way back, Xiaowu looked at Tang Yin and said, "Tang Yin, are you really Tang San's brother? How do you feel like you two are different?" Upon hearing this, Tang Yin smiled lightly and said, "Why is it different?" "Oh, it just feels different." Xiaowu's face blushed and her two rabbit ears began to move. After pondering for a moment, Tang Yin deliberately played a trick and secretly placed his hand on Xiaowu's shoulder, saying, "Tang San and I are actually." "Ah. Actually, what?" Xiaowu was a bit scared, but she didn't expect Tang Yin to put his hand on her shoulder. "Actually. I won't tell you." Tang Yin suddenly smiled, let go of Xiaowu's shoulder, and ran away. Tang. Silver. Xiaowu finally realized that she had been deceived. The words were divided into two parts. Tang San, who had just come out of the master's office, looked at the slowly setting sun on the horizon, and the brilliant golden sunshine scattered on him. Tang San clenched his fist to himself and thought to himself, "You are truly a teacher. You not only helped me clarify the development path of martial souls, but also explained the categories of martial souls to me. You are truly a theoretical master. Tomorrow, the teacher will take me to obtain the first soul ring, so that I can understand the connection between my Xiantian Gong and this world." Ha! Tang San exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, and his heart became much clearer. Walking onto the playground, I found that Xiaowu seemed to be chasing someone. Purple Extreme Magic Eyes. After being strengthened by the Purple Extreme Demon Eye, Tang San also saw clearly who Xiaowu was chasing. It's his good brother, Tang Yin. Tang San scratched his head and said in confusion, "Why did you play with Xiaowu? It's really strange." Although he said so, Tang San always felt that something was missing in his heart, which made him feel a bit suppressed. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Preparation for hunting the first soul ring. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Preparation for hunting the first soul ring. The next day, the early morning sunshine filled every corner of Qisha. Tang Yin flipped over and jumped off the bed, putting on the clothes she had left by the bed last night. Stretching lazily, he glanced at the beds of Tang San and Xiaowu. As expected, Tang San went to practice. Pushing open the door of the dormitory, Tang Yin began today's exercise. First, he started with tree climbing training to better control his soul power. Next, he started with water stepping training and balance training. Tang Yin took a deep breath and felt the morning air, then began to do strength training. Tang San on the roof naturally noticed Tang Yin's exercise, but he felt that Tang Yin was just practicing blindly. Immediately close your eyes and continue to absorb the first purple breath of the morning. It is extremely difficult to cultivate purple extreme demon eyes, but fortunately, I have reached the dual realm and entered the subtle realm. On the other hand, Tang Yin's training is still nearing its end. Since he was able to complete these trainings, he has never given up on a single day, even if his whole body is in excruciating pain. In his eyes, the journey of cultivation itself is painful, especially now that he is still young. Refining his body more is only beneficial and not harmful. This also led to his extremely delicate control over the blue-silver grass. Even the Sharingan could be instantly activated, which were all secrets hidden in his heart. The formation of ninjutsu seals is also much faster than before. Although I only succeeded before entering school, I have been practicing these seals for 2.5 years, still relying on the powerful mental state of the Sharingan. If I use Tang San's crane control and dragon capturing technique, I can compress the original 44 seals of the water hammer into 3 seals. However, the power of the water cannon is equivalent to that of a great soul master, far inferior to Tang San's hidden weapons, Tang Yin thought to himself. After a moment, Tang San and Tang Yin both finished their cultivation. The former focused on cultivating spiritual power, while the latter focused on cultivating physical strength. When the two of them returned to the dormitory, they found that the people inside had already been dressed, and only a few were still under the covers. Xiaowu saw Tang San and Tang Yin walking into the dormitory together, and a hint of doubt flashed in her eyes. "Tang Yin, Tang San, why did you two go?" After speaking, Xiaowu rubbed her sleepy eyes and yawned, obviously just waking up. Without waiting for Tang San to speak up, Tang Yin took the initiative to say, "It's nothing, it's just getting up early to exercise, it's my habit." As he spoke, Tang Yin took off his clothes and revealed the muscles that shouldn't belong to this age group. A hint of surprise flashed in Tang San's eyes. He had lived with Tang Yin for so many years, but had never seen each other's bodies. The current scene truly shocked him. However, a hint of doubt flashed in Tang San's eyes and he thought to himself, "I only learned to cultivate from a young age when I was reborn. Besides, I haven't told my brother about my Xiantian. How did he know how to cultivate? Is it?" Thinking of this, Tang San's eyes flashed with a fierce expression, but it was quickly hidden by him, and his gaze at Tang Yin became somewhat profound. Xiaowu widened her eyes and watched Tang Yin undress, her face instantly turning red with a hint of shyness and anger flashing in her eyes. "Tang Yin, you're shameless." Tang Yin looked at Xiaowu with a blushing face and seemed to think of something. He smiled and said, "It's okay, just watch it. You're not at a disadvantage." Xiaowu quickly lowered her head, clasped her hands tightly, and a blush appeared on her face. No matter what, you can't take off your clothes, even though it's not a loss, Xiaowu thought to herself. Tang Yin turned her head to look at Tang San and saw him standing there motionless. She raised her eyebrows and said, "San, can you help me get a towel? My back has been injured a bit." Upon hearing this, Tang San nodded and turned to walk towards the clothes-drying pole outside the dormitory door. Upon hearing that Tang Yin's back was injured, Xiaowu frowned and said, "Tang Yin, why are you injured?" Tang Yin smiled faintly and said, "Guess why you got hurt?" Xiaowu's face turned black. Why is Tang Yin so familiar with what she said? "Brother, can I wipe your back?" At this moment, Tang San walked in with a clean towel. "Thank you then, mistress," Tang Yin smiled without looking back. Tang San said, "We are a family, there is no need to say thank you." Xiaowu watched the interaction between the two on the side, her big eyes twitched, as if she had thought of something. "Tang Yin, can you tell me? How did you get hurt?" Xiaowu blinked and asked. "Oh, did you forget what you did to me last night?" Tang Yin pretended to be skeptical. "Last night? Ah. I remember." Xiaowu covered her mouth and exclaimed in surprise. Noticing that the strength behind him had increased significantly, Tang Yin chuckled and said, "Xiaowu, you can't put such a heavy hand next time. I don't want to try your soft skills anymore." Xiaowu quickly nodded, indicating that she would definitely start lightly next time. Tang San slowly stood up and said lightly, "Brother, it's done." "Thank you, mistress." Tang Yin stood up, her perfect figure visible in Xiaowu's eyes. Tang San nodded and walked out of the dormitory to clean the towels. Seeing Tang San walk out, Tang Yin's sharp eyes turned to Xiaowu and whispered, "Xiaowu. Haven't you seen enough yet?" Xiaowu was startled by the sudden sound and suddenly stood up, walking towards the outside of the dormitory. Calculating the time, "It's almost time to go hunting soul beasts," Tang Yin thought to himself. The words are divided into two parts. Tang San's eyes flickered with coldness as he walked out of the dormitory. He now had ample reason to believe that Tang Yin might be like himself, not someone from this world. But these are still just his speculations. Wow wow. Tang San turned on the faucet and cleaned the towel he had just used. "The teacher will take me to hunt soul rings soon, maybe my Xiantian can also break through the top of the first layer." Tang Sanyi smiled slightly at the thought of breaking through the first level of Xiantian. Bad guy Tang Yin, why is he so bad? At this moment, Xiaowu's voice reached Tang San's ear. "Xiaowu. How did she come out?" Tang San had some doubts in his heart. Xiaowu saw Tang San standing there washing the towel and waved his hand. "Tang San, haven't you finished washing yet? We need to go clean up." "I'm coming right now," Tang San responded and draped a towel over the clothes-drying pole. Turning around, I noticed that Xiaowu's face turned red and couldn't help but ask, "Xiaowu, why is your face red?" Listening to Tang San's inquiry, Xiaowu's face turned black. Thinking of Tang Yin's actions, she couldn't help but clench her fist and say, "Don't mention Tang Yin to me. That big bad guy is really despicable." Upon seeing this, Tang San smiled lightly. For Xiaowu, he always had a feeling of wanting to take care of her. But he also knows that they are not yet as good as that. "Are you ready, mistress?" Just then, the master walked slowly. Seeing the master, Tang San stepped forward and respectfully said, "Teacher, I'm ready. When will we set off?" The master saw Tang San feeling a little anxious and smiled, "You're actually anxious. We'll have to go buy some things later, otherwise it'll be a bit troublesome just for the two of us." "Oh." Tang San heard this and became interested. He spoke up and asked, "Teacher, what else do we need?" The master reached out and touched Tang San's head, saying softly, "Don't worry, I have already decided on what to buy. When we leave the academy, we can start hunting souls after buying the things." Tang San nodded obediently. On the side, Xiaowu's face turned pale. She naturally knew what soul hunting meant, and that was killing her compatriots. Biting her lips, Xiaowu said in a voice, "Tang San, how should we allocate the area we clean after you leave?" Tang San was also a bit embarrassed. After all, it was not good for Xiaowu to clean up after leaving. Tang Yin was nowhere to be seen all day, so he helped clean it himself. Thinking of this, Tang San also hesitated. After all, it would not be good for Xiaowu to clean such a large area, but he also had to go soul hunting to improve his strength. It seems that neither side is too easy to choose from. The master next to him naturally saw Xiaowu, and a hint of warmth flashed in his eyes. He scolded, "You little child, why are you so ignorant? Don't you know the importance of soul hunting? I'll have someone clean it up later, and Xiao San must go soul hunting today." The master's anger immediately intimidated Tang San and Xiaowu, as his strength was not high and his temper was quite strong. Xiaowu felt a bit aggrieved. She just didn't want her fellow countrymen to be hurt, but now that she has transformed into an adult, there is nothing she can do. Tang San saw Xiaowu's aggrieved expression and felt an inexplicable pain in his heart, as if something was about to be lost. The master saw Xiaowu looking aggrieved and wanted to start scolding, but found Tang San pulling his hand. As an old and refined person, he naturally knew what it meant. "Humph, mistress, I'll give you 1 hour, and we'll meet at the door in 1 hour." After the master finished speaking, he slowly walked away with his hands behind his back. Xiaowu was also very aggrieved. She didn't understand what she had said that could make Xiaogang so angry. At this moment, she was alone, thinking of her mother. "Mom. Xiaowu, I miss you." Tears as big as beans dripped from Xiaowu's beautiful eyes onto the ground, like a torrent rushing down. Xiaowu. Tang San's heart twisted like a knife as he watched Xiaowu's appearance at this moment, making it difficult to breathe. Tang San shook his hands and hugged Xiaowu, murmuring incessantly, "Xiaowu, I'm sorry, it's my fault." Xiaowu widened her eyes and allowed Tang San to embrace her. For some reason, she felt a long-lost warmth in Tang San's embrace. The two embraced each other with a bit of selflessness. Even Tang Yin walked out of the dormitory without realizing it, and the place where Tang Yin walked was the teaching office. An hour later, Tang San looked at Xiaowu, who had already regained her smiling face, and touched her head. "Xiaowu, then I'll leave first. I'll bring you something delicious when I come back," he said. "Got it, as agreed, you'll have to do all the hygiene for next semester when you come back." Xiaowu clenched her small fist and smiled slightly. "Don't worry, I'll do what Tang San says." Tang San waved his hand and turned to leave. Until Tang San's figure gradually disappeared, Xiaowu sat on the steps with a dejected expression, not knowing what she was thinking. "By the way, where did Tang Yin go?" Xiaowu patted her buttocks and stood up, only to realize that there was no one left in the dormitory. The third party has left, and Tang Yin has also left. It's so boring. Xiaowu kept muttering. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. First Soul Ring. Qingming Thunder Vine. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 First Soul Ring. Qingming Thunder Vine Nodding Junior Soul Master Academy, Teaching Office. "Hello, Director Su." Tang Yin walked into the teaching office and greeted the elderly teacher. "Tang Yin. Why are you here? Is there something wrong?" Director Su still has a deep impression of Tang Yin, even if it's the abandoned martial soul blue-silver grass, but it's still innate full soul power, isn't it? "Director Su, is there really something I need your help with?" Tang Yin said calmly. "Oh." Director Su put down the matter at hand and asked in confusion, "What's going on?" "You can tell me." Upon hearing this, Tang Yin said, "I want to obtain the first soul ring." "What? Do you want to obtain the first soul ring now?" Director Su stood up in shock, then thought of Tang Yin's innate full soul power. The words on his lips turned back. Well, Tang Yin, the school has just started and the teachers in the college are all dealing with the enrollment of new students. It's definitely not possible to take you to the soul hunting forest. Director Su was a bit puzzled. It's okay, Su. Tang Yin was about to explain when he heard the master's voice coming. Director Su, could you please arrange for a part-time student to clean the area on the east side of the dormitory? The master, with his hands on his back and a scholarly demeanor, walked slowly into the teaching office. Upon hearing this, Director Su's face was a bit uneasy, but he still spoke kindly and said, "Master, this is not in accordance with the rules. One dormitory is responsible for one area, which is set by the dean." The master listened to Director Su's rebuttal with a slightly displeased expression and said, "From the dean's side, I'll talk to you. You just need to arrange it." After speaking, he glanced at Tang Yin standing in the teaching office and couldn't help but feel a bit puzzled. The master thought to himself, this kid has good talent, but unfortunately he's a bit too proud. Otherwise, with my theoretical guidance, he would definitely be the next famous title Douluo in the mainland. Director Su had a headache, but he couldn't refute it. After all, the master is a friend of the dean, and he really doesn't have much power to interfere with what the other party wants to do. Glancing at Tang Yin standing beside him, Director Su suddenly came up with a good idea. He coughed lightly and said to the master, "Master, since you have obtained the soul ring for your disciple Tang San, why not bring Tang Yin along? He happens to be going to obtain the soul ring today." Tang Yin raised his eyebrows and naturally understood what Director Su meant, but he was too young to enter the soul-hunting forest alone. Thinking of this, Tang Yin spoke up decisively, not giving the master a chance to refuse. "Master, I underestimated you before, and I apologize to you here." "Hua Luo," Tang Yin bowed to the master. The master nodded with a hint of pride in his heart and said, "Kid, don't you still have to beg me to take you to obtain the soul ring? But at least you are also a seedling with innate soul power. If this soul-hunting trip can make this kid worship under my door, then I will definitely stand at the top of the mainland's theory in the future." With a light cough, "Tang Yin, I forgive you. Seeing that you are still a child and a bit rebellious, I won't care so much about you now. Half an hour later, you come to the door and wait for me. I will take you and the mistress to the soul-hunting forest to obtain the first soul ring." After speaking, the master carried his classic hands and slowly walked out of the teaching room. The master left, and Director Su sighed as he looked at Tang Yin. "Dao, I know you're not convinced, but now you really can't find any extra teachers. Although the master's strength is not average, his theory is indeed top-notch in some aspects." Seeing Tang Yin not speaking, Director Su thought for a moment and said, "If the soul hunting doesn't go smoothly this time, I'll arrange for other teachers to go when you come back." Upon hearing this, Tang Yin nodded to show understanding, then bowed to Director Su and left the teaching office. Half an hour later, Tang Yin carried a small backpack with a small water bottle, about 2 or 3 liters in size, and some dry food that he had saved up for cleaning. Although he hasn't cleaned himself once, no one in the dormitory except for Xiaowu has ever beaten him. Of course, it's not ruled out that Xiaowu deliberately allowed him to use his unique skills in front of others, right? "Teacher, I've dealt with it, Why is brother here?" Tang San ran towards the master happily, only to find that Tang Yin was also there. The master coughed lightly and said, "Third, your brother also wants to obtain the first soul ring. It's just right. Let's go buy the things we need to prepare, and I'll talk to you about soul beast knowledge on the way." "Okay, teacher." Tang San nodded and turned to look at Tang Yin, whispering, "Brother, why did you come along too?" Tang Yin said calmly, "You, as a younger brother, need to obtain a soul ring. How can I, as an older brother, fall behind?" Upon hearing this, Tang San's face was taken aback and he thought to himself, as expected, brother is definitely not from this world. He is too precocious. The master walked ahead, thinking that he would use theory to subdue Tang Yin, so that he would have two disciples of twin martial souls. Teacher, where are we going to hunt souls? Tang San only remembered when he walked out of the college. The master said, we are going to the soul hunting forest 400 miles east of Nodding City, which is where the empire keeps soul beasts. We are going there. After a moment, Tang Yin looked curiously at the vendors in the city. After all, this was different from the technological era in the past, and now it is only the era of feudal dynasties. Teacher, what are we doing here? Tang San asked in confusion. The master just talked about the soul hunting forest 400 miles east of Nodding City, but now he's wandering around the city. The master said, we need to prepare what we need to hunt soul beasts. Oh, I see. Tang San nodded. Not long after, as the sun gradually rose, there were more and more pedestrians in the city, which made Tang Yin feel the long-lost fireworks. After all, when I was in Holy Soul Village, I was so poor that I jingled, but I had never been to a market like that before, and I had to go door to door to exchange things. After a moment, the master held 3 leather bags specifically designed to hold water, as well as some meat, fruits, pancakes, and a large basket of white radishes, weighing a full 20 pounds. Teacher, why do we buy these white radishes? Tang San pretended to be struggling and hugged a large basket of white radishes, asking in a voice. Although 20 pounds is not considered heavy, it is not light either. Tang Yin can tell that Tang San is pretending and practicing Xiantian Gong has various unique Tang sect skills. A mere 20 pounds of white radish can make you feel so tired. The master first glanced at Tang San, then at Tang Yin with a bitter smile and said, Xiao San, you will know when you arrive at the soul hunting forest. After speaking, the master hired a carriage in the city and checked it before getting on to prevent anything from falling. Then, the 3 of them sat in the carriage and headed towards the soul hunting forest. On the way to the soul hunting forest, although the road was a bit bumpy, the freshness made Tang Yin and Tang San feel a little excited. There was nothing else, one was that they had never ridden a carriage in their past life, and the other was the scenery of a feudal dynasty in their past life. Xiao San, this is for you. The master's faint voice reached Tang San's ears, and at some point, he had an extra belt in his hand. 24 bridges on a bright moon night. Tang Yin glanced at her and thought to herself. Next, just like the original work, the master handed the belt to Tang San, who named it 24 Bridges with Bright Moon Night. When the 3 of them arrived at the soul hunting forest, it was already the afternoon of the second day, and even Tang Yin did not expect that this carriage would be so fast. Tang San frowned slightly and said, Teacher, this forest is not quite what I imagined. The master showed a hint of interest and touched Tang San's head, then tell me, what do you think? I think it should be full of natural atmosphere, with a serene forest, fresh air, and sparse population, but the forest in front of me is like a market. Looking at the large buildings, shops, and various cheers built around, Tang San couldn't help but frown. The master listened to Tang San's words and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, but his stiff face was really ugly. Xiao San, what you think is beautiful, but reality is cruel, right? Upon hearing this, Tang San nodded. Hunting and killing defensive soul beasts, a 7-person order, and 15 gold soul coins. Hunting agile soul beasts, 5 people and 7 gold soul coins. Similar shouts kept coming and going, and most of the shops around were selling weapons, armor, and various food supplies. Not long after, the master took Tang San and Tang Yin to the outskirts of the soul hunting forest, surrounded by a tall iron fence that looked at least 10 meters high and very sturdy. Outside the fence, over 100 soldiers, yug, dressed in refined iron and full of kai, holding long spears, stood there solemnly. After a moment, the master took out the martial soul hall token and handed it to the soldiers, who quickly opened the iron fence for it. After entering the soul hunting forest, the master did not rush forward, but silently observed the surroundings. Seeing no movement around, the master's eyes flickered with a hint of brightness. He quickly closed his chest with both hands and then quickly parted downwards. Come out, Luo Sanpao. 2 soul rings rose at the master's feet, and the classic pig-like and dog-like Luo Sanpao appeared in front of the 3 of them. Tang Yin looked at Luo Sanpao with some disdain in his heart and said, "Is this the Sodot called useless martial soul, only a useless soul master?" Next, the master explained various knowledge of soul beasts to the 2, and Tang Yin was also happy and leisurely, following the master's footsteps towards the forest. It didn't take long for it to turn dark, and Tang Yin quietly opened his Sharingan. He didn't want Tang San to know his ability to write Sharingan yet. "Let's camp here," said the master. For a moment, the 3 of them camped and leaned against a big tree. The master told Tang San his own story, while Tang Yin slowly faded away during their conversation. After walking for an unknown amount of time, Tang Yin stopped. Along the way, although he did not see any powerful soul masters, he saw the mandala snake quickly crawling towards Tang San's position. Sha sha sha. Tang Yin looked in the direction he was heading towards and noticed a series of noises coming from there. Without hesitation, he knew that it was mandala rushing to deliver the soul ring. Boom boom boom. Is it going to rain? Tang Yin looked at the sky in confusion, only to see a small black cloud suddenly appear ahead, with a faint flicker of thunder in the darkness. Perhaps it is, thunder roars like a prison vine. Tang Yin thought of the soul beast in the original work, which rarely had the bloodline of the thunder god. Thundering Yen prison vine is a type of existence that has been at the top of the plant-based soul beast since birth. It has innate wisdom, and when it first grows, it is like a bamboo shoot, with only a small section. Its growth must be in a place where lightning is dense. It can only develop when it rains or thunders. After each lightning strike, it becomes stronger on its own, and 100 lightning strikes is equivalent to 1 year of cultivation for an ordinary soul beast. Even if it's not, I have to go and take a look. Tang Yin's eyes flashed with a hint of red light, and he quickly ran towards the small thundercloud with a ghostly shadow. After a moment, Tang Yin peeled open the last branch that covered the small thunder cloud, only to realize that what was in front of him was not a thundering hell's vine, but its branch, Qingming thunder vine. Self-created soul beast, Tang Yin was somewhat surprised. He had heard from his teacher in class about this soul beast. Although Qingming thunder vine only has a thin bloodline of lightning, it has extremely high resilience. The first soul ring, it's just you. Boom. The thundercloud struck a fierce thunderbolt, which was the test for Qingming thunder vine to awaken the bloodline of the thunder god. If it could succeed, so it will also evolve into thundering Yen prison vine. Qingming Lading has only just reached 500 years of cultivation, and even with all his skills, he cannot resist the thunder that prevents the evolution of soul beasts. Thunderbolt came down, and the green thunder vine shattered in an instant. The entire plant body was chopped and emitted black smoke, weakly lying on the ground, waiting quietly for death. Upon seeing this, Tang Yin quickly formed a seal. At the moment when his index finger and thumb stood upright below his lips, his soul power turned into flames and spewed out instantly from his mouth. Fire escape. The art of Xiaowu. A fireball with a diameter of 1 meter rushed towards Qingming, and in an instant, a little lightning on Qingming's body reacted elementally with this giant fireball. Boom. With a burst of explosion, Qingming's body lay powerless on the ground. Its body gradually turned into fly ash and dissipated under the elemental reaction of thunder and fire. Hoo. Tang Yin covered his chest, and just now this huge fireball took 50% of his soul power. Otherwise, there will never be an explosion. Watching the yellow soul ring appearing on Qingming's dissipated body, Tang Yin held his breath and focused, strode forward towards the soul ring, and sat cross-legged to absorb it. Due to the first absorption of the soul ring, it did not go as smoothly as imagined. Tang Yin's face twitched, but fortunately her physical and mental strength was strong enough. Even the shattered soul of Qingming Laden did not come out to cause trouble at this moment. Thank you all for reading this chapter. It is indeed a bit too much and a bit verbose. I am truly sorry. The author is a newcomer, and the rhythm is not very well controlled. Please forgive me. End of this chapter.